how the heck do you ever get pregnant again?
That was never a problem.
Well, I know how.
My nickname was Fertile Myrtle.
And One Shot Mike.
One Shot Mike.
Stories with Vavo. Stories with Vavo. Listen to 'em all. We got those stories with Vavo. She was born in Rotterdam, and her stories are the best. Vavo. And she'll never stop talking.
Welcome back to Stories with Vavo. I'm here with my lovely mother, Sophia Pancho. My name is Philip Pancho, and we are going to continue on the road of life, I guess, and talk about our early marriage life and see where the story takes us today.
Yeah, I was thinking that if I don't get on to our married days and keep talking about all these other memories, we'll never have time to do, because I had 19 years of life before I got married.
Yeah.
But I think last week I touched on our wedding day when we picked the flowers and went and decorated the church. I had my sister Esther was my bridesmaid, and Pat, at the time Kerrigan, was my bridesmaid, and my friend Gloria Phillipson, who is now a Rigo, also was my bridesmaid. And those two also got married, one in May and one in July, all the same time. Mine was June, so we all were bridesmaids for each other. And good friends, and we've kept in touch ever since. So we had our wedding at St. Teresa's Church. I don't know if I should mention that Norman Repose was Dad's best man.
Yeah,
and then
who else was standing with that?
Roddy Adcock and Colin, oh my Lord, I've forgotten his last name. Anyhow, he had three, same as I did. So we had our reception at Spanish Point Boat Club, and I know we talked about that before, how it was a big reception and all done by us in those days. No caterers, no nothing. Lots of booze, and then we spent our honeymoon in Bermuda. First day of our honeymoon, because we were home, and it was Friday, so no meat on Fridays. I made pancakes, and I sure have learned how to make pancakes since then, because that lot was hard as rock. Grandpa sat there and ate every last bite, never complained. So we didn't do too much cooking during that first week because we didn't go anywhere. We didn't have money. And I said to Dad, well, why would we go and spend hundreds of dollars going to New York? Poconos was where everybody was going at that time. And I said, we live in the honeymoon capital of the world. Why do we need to spend money going somewhere else? So we rented a sailboat, and we had a day out at sea with the sailboat, terrible sunburn. And then a couple of nights we went out and had special dinner. And then we actually walked in on my Mom and Dad and had dinner with them one of the days, out of money to go out again. And then our routine started, going to work. We didn't have any transportation. Michael had a little moped, and I used to ride the bus. And then little later on, he discovered this old motorbike in his mother's shed, which was Raymond's old motorbike. And it just sat there deserted for I don't know how many years, but he fiddled around with it and he got it going. The only problem with that bike, one was it killed us with cloud of smoke anytime we had to do a little hill or anything. And the other was there was no seat.
What?
No seat on the bike. So he fixed one out of a piece of wood. Got
Comfy.
it, put a little pad on it, and he got that thing on sturdy enough that I used to be able to ride on the back of it. And one of our big treats, because always so short of money, I should explain that we were both working, but we had no money to start buying our furniture and everything else. So we had bought, I think we were able to afford our fridge and stove. And then we bought the living room set on time, which was disgraceful in those days. But all our extra money we used to put into payments to get this furniture paid up. So we only had money once a month. On a treat, we used to ride that old rattletrap bike up to Bose Island and go and get chicken and chips. And it was little tiny hole in the wall, little hot, stinky little restaurant. Not stinky, but so oppressive with the heat. Nothing was air conditioned yet. Mm-hmm. And then we went and got a chicken leg, a bunch of salad, and a few potato chips. 5 shillings.
Okay.
It was the deal of a lifetime. And
So
nothing
equate
ever
that for
tasted
me.
so good. Pardon?
Equate
5
that.
shillings.
Yeah.
It was 5 shillings. A dollar. A pound was $2.80, and 5 shillings is a quarter of that.
Oh, okay.
So that was
Math.
around 50, 60 cents
Okay.
for that meal.
Okay.
And it was done on a barbecue. You could have the flames and all. They had the barbecue thing out in the back, not inside the little restaurant. And you could smell that for miles as you approached there. The thing that spoiled it was we used to go past this big field of cows. And boy, did it smell. It was a terrible smell going past that field. And then there was also a nice restaurant there, which we never went back to because when you sat in the restaurant to eat, that's all you could smell was the cow out in the fields. But
this was like the deal of the lifetime.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So we're going to go out to dinner.
Yeah, and that was once a month we used to treat ourselves. And when we didn't go to Bose Island, we went for lunch to the Copper Kettle, which was in the middle of Hamilton. And these 2 sisters ran a little tiny, like a coffee shop thing. There were just seats on a small bar. And they made the best soup in the world with the crusty little buns. And we would go get a cup of soup and a bun. Now that I don't even remember what it cost, but it was a lot less than 5 shillings. And I remember one time going there and it was too soon. I'd had dental work done and I bit my bottom lip so bad eating that bun. I didn't know I was biting it until the sedation started to go away. Then I knew I bit it. But yeah.
I've been there. Everybody's been there at some point. I know I've done that once and somebody was looking at me. Phil, your mouth is bleeding. What? Oh, I bit into my lip.
So our life was all small treats like that. And then we took seriously the command of increase and multiply. So nearly 3 months into our marriage, I got pregnant. And it was a terrible pregnancy. I was so seasick, I was going to say. So nauseous all the time. For 6 months, I never gained an ounce until I was 6 months along. I started to improve. I could eat, and everything I ate, I used to puke, and it was terrible. But anyway, when at the end of the pregnancy, I gained a little bit, but unfortunately, our little girl didn't live. just lived for 2 days, and that was hard, to say the least. We were shattered, but we knew God had a plan for us, and it just didn't include that little girl. So we had, I went home from there. My brother Michael had been born 6 months before. When I got married, my mother was pregnant for Michael, my youngest brother. And so he was born in January of 1960. And our little girl was born in June. And so when they discharged me from the hospital, I went home to my mom's, because in those days they used to keep you in the hospital for 10 days, from having a baby. But I didn't want to stay there. Absolutely not. And then went to my mom's house, and I really dreaded going there to that little 6-month baby. But when I got there, he was the biggest blessing ever. He just filled the void. And I got him into my arms and held him to my heart. It was such a comfort. And he was such a happy little baby, and just made life more bearable. And from then on, he pretty much, we took him with us everywhere. Mama was very good about sharing him with us. And
with her track record with Uncle Joe, she was probably like, "Yeah, you take him, you take him."
But so many people at that time actually didn't realize we'd lost our baby, because we always had him.
You
so
had a baby anyway,
the 6 months to somebody else didn't mean anything.
So how do you get through something like that?
Oh, we got through with a lot of prayer and a lot of love for each other. Dad always understood my heartbreak, and I knew he was too, but he was a lot stronger than me. Well, everybody's stronger than me, because I just bawl it out, right? Everybody knows.
There's strength in being able to bawl it out.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
but,
definitely.
And I had said to you that I hesitated about telling this, because I knew I couldn't do it without crying. So, but that's the way it is, and it still breaks my heart after all these years.
Yeah, you can tell the pain does not go away.
It doesn't go away, and the more you see your other children come along and everything, you love them so much, but that one is always missing. So when that year, the end of the year, our little Geraldine came into our life. That was Audrey Benavides had her little girl, and asked us to be her godmother. And for quite a while, you wouldn't remember because you were too young. When you were nowhere in sight
Not
when
that time,
that little one was born. But she used to come and play with us, come and spend time with us and be my little girl. And then before you knew it, I'm pregnant for Danny, and we had, yeah.
Mark.
No, I'm sorry.
What happened to Mark?
I didn't forget you, Mark. I didn't forget you.
Well, we adopted Mark, and then I was pregnant with Danny. No, that's fake news. Don't worry.
Actually, that year at Christmas time, I had a miscarriage. I was 3 months along, and I had a miscarriage.
Oh my!
And then after that, I got pregnant for Mark, and that was a very, very different experience from my first pregnancy. I had a little bit of morning sickness for a few months, but then I was fine. And then Mark was born nice and healthy, 7 pounds, 10 ounces, I think. And when we went home from the hospital, everything was fine. And he was, I was trying to breastfeed him. He wasn't doing very well. We weren't doing very well with the breastfeeding. But a couple of days into my home stay, I began to hemorrhage. So
Oh.
I went back to the hospital and nearly lost my life. It was a huge battle. And we had all my, because I have B negative blood, it was hard getting the people to donate transfusion, and we got through all that, but it was a very hard ordeal. But Granny and Angie took care of Mark while I was, while Dad was running around like crazy trying to figure out what to do. And we came through all that all right. And Mark was a healthy little boy. Granny looked after him when I went back to work. At that time, Dad was still being apprenticed at, I don't know if it was when Mark was born that he became apprenticed at NCR, but it meant he was working for a very low wage, so I went back to work, and Granny had Mark, and then he grew such a heavy little chubby thing that it became hard for her to handle him. So that's where we had met our friend Amy before, who lived next door, Amy and Bert Marsh, and they had a son, Peter, and the beautiful little Diane with her blue eyes and blonde ponytail. And she ended up babysitting Mark. Amy did for us.
Okay. So like, well, because Granny was pretty advanced when she had Dad.
Yeah.
Right? So how old was she at this time?
She was 43 when Dad was born.
Okay,
So Dad was 20, so she'd be 63.
Right, and that's a lot to deal with if you're...
Yeah.
Because she was kind of smaller framed. And,
Yeah. And anyway, she was willing to take him, I know, and she had time with him, but it just too much. As long as he was just a baby in arms, it was fine. But when he was going to be starting to crawl or start to be a handful running around, then it was harder for her. So that's when we met with Amy. And
okay, so Amy's babysitting Mark now.
Mark, yeah.
Okay. And how old is Peter to Mark and Peter and Diane?
Oh, Peter was the same age as my brother Joe. He was, Joe was 9 at that point. Joe was born in 51, and this was 62 when Mark was born. So 11 years, and so Peter would have been 11. And Diane probably 8 or 9. I don't remember anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Uncle Mike's born in 60, Mark's in 62.
Yeah.
So in that time before Mark, then Mike became your...
Yeah. Michael was with us
point.
all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite pictures we put up at Dad's birthday where Uncle Mike's jumping off the table into Dad's arms or
and
something
Dad's catching him. Yeah.
So you could tell that relationship.
Yeah.
How different that would have been at that time, and how
Yeah.
much that probably meant to you.
Oh yeah.
During that time.
Yeah.
So then Mark comes along, and it's still not
No.
easy because
No.
you have your medical issue.
Yeah.
How the heck do you ever get pregnant again?
That was never a problem.
Well, I know how.
My nickname was Fertile Myrtle.
And One Shot Mike.
One Shot Mike.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Jeepers
So
creepers.
when Danny was expected, then Dad was already with NCR, and then they were gonna send him to Puerto Rico for training, and we ended, well, in the meantime, wait a minute, and before,
I thought Mark and Danny were both in Puerto Rico.
yeah.
So
yeah,
was Dad able
was-
to kind of stave off that training when?
No. When Danny came along, he already knew he was going to Puerto Rico.
Right.
But in the meantime, we had changed houses. We didn't live in Spanish Point anymore. We went to live up in Harrington Hundreds.
Oh, okay.
The house had a beautiful ocean view, and thinking back, we never should have moved, but just the allure of that beautiful ocean view, and the house itself was really no better than the one we were living in. But in that, thinking ahead to adding on bedrooms, the house we bought in Spanish Point, our first house, only had 2 bedrooms. And so we were thinking most likely were going to have more than one child. We were right. And it wasn't an easy way of adding to that house. So the opportunity came with this other place, which was built also with 2 bedrooms, but they had a carport built at the side of the house, which would easily be changed into a 3rd bedroom. And all this because to keep your costs low while you could save more money and then add, to the house you bought. So when we actually moved to Harrington Hundreds, and when after Danny was born, I had to wait a month. Dad had already gone. He was there when Danny was born, and then he went on to Puerto Rico for his training, and I had to wait a month before I could travel after having the baby. I don't know why, but that was the rule.
Well,
So
it's funny because Johnny and I were talking about this last week about how different it is to get pregnant now.
yeah.
And all these things that you got to take this vitamin.
Oh,
you gotta do
yeah.
that,
Well,
and I think maybe at your time might have been, hey, don't drink as much.
Right. Well,
Right.
I was about to say, in the first place, with my first pregnancy, I had no appetite and I wasn't gaining weight and all that. What was nourishing this little baby? I didn't even have prenatal tablets. There was nothing. It was just, well, that's the way you are, and take it for granted. I didn't think I had a very good doctor. But then when you just wonder afterwards, if I'd had some better care and prenatal vitamins or something, what could have happened? You don't
Right.
know. And there is no point in trying, to backtrack and think about it. But it's part of history and progress
Right.
that now they do have a lot more to. They have the ultrasounds, which we never had. Ultrasound might have found something, they just, all they said was that the baby had very weak vital signs. The heart, the lungs, everything was very weak. And later, when I was having Mark, we had our first specialist come to Bermuda, the gynecologist. We never had one till he came. And I went to see him because of having the miscarriage, and then what the heck is this, and I went to see him, and his opinion was the baby was late. She was supposed to have been born at the end, like the last week of May, not the last week, May 18th or something. She wasn't born till June 18th. And he said he's a firm believer that your amniotic fluid will nourish that baby for so long, and the longer you're overdue, it loses its nourishment. So it all seemed to make sense. But thank goodness when Mark came along, even with my mishap, it was okay afterwards. And yeah, so you were saying about how is it that you get pregnant so fast? You have to play Catholic roulette. No, what do they call it? Vatican roulette,
Vatican
roulette
roulette.
to see how that works.
I always tell Dad. Dad always used to talk about the church-approved drugs.
Oh yeah, I'm not telling.
No acetol and sulfadeniol.
Sulfur denial. So we
Anyway,
go
we
off
got Danny.
to Puerto Rico. Go up
Fast
to
forward to 1964.
when
and
Danny
Danny's born.
was
Yeah.
born, and I go off with this little 1 month baby, and Mark was to Puerto Rico to meet Dad, and that was quite the experience. We were there for almost a year, and at least got to meet some new friends there, and
I think one of my favorite Mark and Danny stories comes from Puerto Rico, though. Isn't it Puerto Rico?
that's what. Oh no, that was back home.
Oh, that was back in Bermuda. Because I was going to say, like,
Bermuda.
if Danny wasn't even a year old, then
No,
that's not. Yeah.
that's later in Bermuda. So I was we met. There was the play. Why he went to Puerto Rico was like the international center for the training, and so we met people there from Bahamas, from the different islands, and nice people. We had good time and big parties on the weekend where 50-50 pineapple juice and rum. Barbados rum was so cheap there. So we had our times there too. Mark developed an infection on his chin. It was like a boil. I took him, and Danny had a bad cold, and took him to get looked at. So Danny was in my arms with his bad cold and coughing, and the doctor says, oh, he didn't even look at Mark. He said, so what's wrong with him? And I said, oh, he's not the sick one, it's that one. He says, no, I beg to tell you, this is the sick one. He could tell just by listening. And he had asthmatic bronchitis.
Oh, wow.
So had to give him penicillin every day for 10 days. And then I stupidly thought, because I used to give my father his insulin injection, that I would be able to give the injection to the baby. The first time I tried, oh my word, that was so hard. I just couldn't. As soon as I started to push the needle in and he started to cry, I let go and started to cry.
You actually had to inject the penicillin?
Yeah.
Oh, my.
And after that, we just took him every day to the hospital, to the emergency, and they'd give him his shot.
Yeah.
So he cleared up with that, but it was a terrible couple of weeks. He had all that mucus and terrible cough and everything. But we had our time, went to NCR things at the beach in Luquillo Beach in Puerto Rico. It was a gorgeous place, but so much poverty there too. But we weren't new to island life, so that part we got along well.
So did you keep the house in Bermuda through all this?
Yeah, we rented the house to a friend during the time that we were in Puerto Rico. And then when we went back, wait a minute. Did I put in Tony's wedding?
When did Tony get married?
I think it was August of the year that Mark was still young. That's what I'm confused now. I know, excuse me, Esther and Bob, when they got married, it was when Mark was a little baby. He was still
So 62,
still in
63,
diapers. Yeah, and during May of 62 would have been when Esther and Bob got married. And they went away from a few months later. They took off to Mexico.
Oh, okay, that's where Mexico. So that's
yeah.
where they went after they got married.
After they got married, their life was in Mexico, and they had 3 children in Mexico. So, and Yeah, when Tony and Liz got married, we had, Danny wasn't yet expected, so I
Could
don't
have been
know.
63
The
or
grandpa was away. That's why I'm confused. But he wasn't away in Puerto Rico. This is when Mark was still a baby. He went on training to New Jersey or someplace
okay.
like that.
so
And
so Tony
so
and
that
Liz
would
got
have
married
been
in
in
63 as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then,
Well, not
but
as well,
that
yeah.
was August. And
August.
then after that, while Dad was away, Liz came to stay with me like the last 3 months or something before she got married, because I said, well, Michael's away anyway, and you don't have to pay rent where you
Oh,
are.
she had a
Come and-
room or an apartment
Yeah,
somewhere?
she had an
Okay.
apartment, so she stayed with me for those 3 months, and then when Dad came, they waited for Dad to finish his course in order to get married. They settled for August, and then after that was when I got pregnant for Danny. So because Danny was born in March of '64, so and by that time he knew he had to go back again to go to Puerto Rico for the big training, and that was going to be nearly a year. So he didn't want to go by himself,
Right.
and that's why I went along with the boys. And then when we came back from there, Danny at the time when he was little, I had no other life there. It was just me and those two little babies. So he didn't have experience with meeting other people or anything like that. So I left him one night with a neighbor in Puerto Rico when Dad and I went to celebrate our anniversary. And when we came back, she was going crazy because he never stopped crying
Oh,
the
no.
whole time we were gone.
Oh, poor Danny.
So yeah, he didn't know her.
Yeah.
Well, he glimpsed her when she came to visit. He was just half a year old.
Yeah.
And then when we went to back to Bermuda, and I had to go back to work. I hated that. I did not want to go back to work, but I had to because to make ends meet. Dad was still working
his way up.
his way up.
So did Aunt Amy take care of
Yeah, so
all of
Aunt
that?
Amy took Mark and Danny then, and she said he was awful the first few days, but
Yeah.
then he got used to the ID and he was okay. So we go on ahead to.
Well,
Are we done?
we're not going to get through everybody, that's
No.
for sure. So we might have to crank these off two at a time, or we'll see how fast.
Okay,
'Cause-
so then
but-
let's.
Yeah, because I was going to say, because now you're starting to get into the time where, like, I kind of think of when Sam was a baby, like baby, like there wasn't much going on. We were just kind of doing everything like we used to do, only we brought the baby along.
Yeah.
Until they start developing their personality
Mm-hmm.
and starting to grow. So now Mark's 2 years old. You're coming back. Danny's now a little over a year. Life's going to start getting busier from
Yeah.
child point of view. So there's
Yeah.
going to be more stories to tell.
Right.
But I think it would be great if we finished on the gas station story.
But they're older than.
I know, but it's still you got these two guys, and this
Okay.
story is just so darn cute.
So Danny and.
Or was there a different one you wanted to tell?
No, that's okay. I was just going to finish off with Puerto Rico. It was when we came back to Bermuda from Puerto Rico. We had Granny's board or Bill went to pick us up at the airport. And we told him, do not let my mother know. We want to surprise her. She thought we were coming back 2 weeks later. And so we came to the yard and pulled up, and she came out of that house like a bulldozer. Sophia, she's yelling and screaming to come and meet us. Bill said, I was afraid for my life. I was in her way. And she came out and realized we were in the car. And she didn't have to wait another 2 weeks. So she was happy to see us. But this thing about Dan and Mark, we had our house now in Bailey's Bay, and we used to go to the same little gas station all the time. So those guys kind of knew us, and I drove up one day to get my gas, and the two boys were in the back seat. Of course, there's no belts or anything for them. They're just rumbling around the back seat. And I'm kind of putting my head back, resting, and the guy comes to tell me, every time he came by the window, he'd have this huge grin on his face, and he was a black man, and it was dusk, and all you could see was these big white teeth and the whites of his eyes, and I'm wondering what's up his sleeve, you know. But I didn't think anything of it. And then he says to me, I said, how much do I owe you? And I reached back to get my purse in the back seat. And there was Mark with a Tampax sticking out of his mouth like a cigarette. And then he had the carton that the Tampax come, well, the little cover from the cotton part in his mouth. The two of them were sitting in the back seat of the car smoking my Tampax. It was a clean one. And I looked at the guy, and he just couldn't take it anymore. He started laughing out loud. I said, you could have said something. No, he said it was too funny. They had been ransacking my purse while I sat there in peace, just looking out the window.
Oh gosh, I love that one. All right.
Last thing in the world, and what gave it away, I saw Dan with this little tube of cardboard, and I look at Mark, and his had the string hanging in the front.
Oh my gosh.
So there's the
I couldn't imagine. That is just too funny. That is too funny. Well, I think we also have started a little trend with jokes.
Oh my goodness, I didn't even think of it.
Well, I think it might be time for Shakespeare.
You really think so?
Yeah.
Well, Pat told me that she didn't get the kernel.
Oh, well.
I'll have to explain it to her by herself.
She'll have to replay it and try and understand.
So Shakespeare, it was two men walking on an English country road, and they were arguing about who were the greatest poets that had ever lived. One of them said Longfellow was by far the best, and the other was saying, no, Shakespeare. So as they walked, they saw there was a little hill in front of them, and this man came walking down the hill, and he was very bow-legged. So the one who said Longfellow said, now, had Longfellow seen this before him, he would have said, over the hill and down the road walks a man whose legs are bowed. The other one said, oh, Shakespeare would have done much better than that. He would have said, hark, what manner of man is this, who carries his balls in parenthesis?
That's still one of my favorites.
I think it loses something when people can't see the expressions.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
I'll have to find the laugh track again. But no, okay. Well, I mean, it's amazing how fast that goes.
Yeah, it is. And we don't want to make them too long.
No. I think the timing's good. Yeah, well, thank you very much. I think
pleasure.
It's an important story to tell, and
Yeah.
it's really important for people to understand that life doesn't just happen.
No.
You how you react to things is going to determine your quality of life.
And it takes many unexpected turns. Yeah.
Well, we
So-
are certainly blessed that things have worked out the way that they did for all of
Yeah.
us, and to have you and Dad in our lives, and we love you.
Thank you. Something else to that.
Okay, bye. See you. Yeah, so thanks for joining us on another episode. Next week we'll pick up where we left off. I think Kevin and Jimmy will finally come around, and I'm sure there'll be some shenanigans to report on as well. So until then, we'll see you and have a great week.